Hello and welcome to this internal edition of the SEO Club podcast. And I'm joined here by Ivana Flynn and Warren Sammut, also experts within the iGaming niche, in particularly for SEO. And we're going to be talking about something which is quite near and dear to our hearts, or rather to our competition within the SERPs, which is how Parasite SEO is affecting affiliation. And now, if you've been working in the iGaming space and haven't been hidden under a rock for the past 2 years, you've noticed that there are a lot of websites which are ranking in the Google SERPs which aren't affiliate websites. They're actually sources of information from news authorities, from technical websites, which seem to write a little bit of information about casino and gambling and happen to rank and claim positions above and beyond even some of the larger websites which have authority and have been there for a long period of time. So before we get started, we can also mention that on May 5th, Google went out there and started attacking these websites. So Google decided that this was not something which it condoned or respected or wanted to continue happening. It felt as though it was lowering the quality of the search results. It was a manipulation in their eyes. And they decided to start handing manual penalties towards all of these different websites which were participating in Parasite SEO. And I guess we can start with just a little bit of an introduction. Ivana, we can start from you and your opening thoughts on Parasite SEO and what's been going on over the past 5 months.
Parasite SEO is a phenomenon that is around us for quite a while. And if you are doing it correctly, then obviously you took over the SERPs and you are making money, even after the 5th of May, because not everybody dropped, not every country dropped equally, not every language dropped, some actually seen gain. So if you are looking into, is Parasite completely dead? Of course not. Has Parasite changed? Of course, yes. So Parasite SEO, just very shortly, if you don't know what it is, as Sean correctly said, is an abuse of a very powerful website. And you can either do it on subdomain, subfolder, or actually an article with a link, usually affiliate link, to a casino, a provider. So you as an affiliate will actually be claiming credit for this. Now, even if you just try to do this post, which sounds like a very cheap way of gaining visibility in SERPs, it's not that easy because you still need to support it with surrounding articles, you still need to build links to it, because things for competitive keywords are not going to rank overnight, even on highly competitive website. It still needs to be groomed and optimized. So a lot of time people used free places for Parasite SEO, such as LinkedIn. Now we see a massive increase on Reddit. If you go through Reddit, there is a lot of Parasite. Some of it is starting to rank. So there is a little bit Google saying, don't do it. And then they're supporting Reddit doing it. So my thoughts, Parasite is here, will be here in some force. But what you should not have done and what should you not be doing is put all your eggs in one basket and just rely on Parasite SEO as the only force. So just, let's say you are a big Parasite, buy a big website, abuse it, even in a way that it makes money. But you need to be prepared that Google is changing the rules all the time. And therefore, it might not rank, even if it's ranking today and ranks tomorrow, might not rank in a month or a year, or vice versa, might rank better. So test different strategies. Don't rely on one, being your own website, being Parasite, being whatever. Try to be very versatile.
Yeah, and we're going into now the age also of Google issuing manual penalties, so they don't currently know how to deal with Parasite SEO. So there's no algorithmic excellence yet occurring. And this is starting to hit the bottom line of large affiliates. So, I mean, Warren, SEO Roundtable released an article that Catena Media PLC actually issued a Q2 update to their revenues because their parasites or media opportunity or media deals, whatever you want to call it, because everyone has a different way of categorizing this, have been impacted by the May updates. And they've gone ahead, updated their forecast for revenues that they've lost, and also predicted that this might impact their business model moving forwards. What do you have to say about that?
I mean, it's in a way refreshing to see a big company also acknowledge it, right? Because we've been talking about this in SEO for a while, particularly since the May update. What's curious is in what way has it affected them? Are they seeing more people actually utilizing Parasite, or are their deal parasites, so to speak, being affected? Because as Ivana said, it's not that Parasite has gone away. It's just different types of Parasite websites that affiliates are kind of latching onto. And what I've noticed also, the shelf life of the parasites is now shorter. It's shorter term than it was before. So maybe it's become also a bit more of a churn and burn kind of strategy. It's definitely affecting iGaming. I mean, maybe not so much in like the largest English speaking countries. As we know, Google typically targets those first and the rest tend to follow suit. But in other markets, Parasite SEO is still very much there. So I think it's become part of the SEO's repertoire of tools, essentially. And it's one thing that I don't think it's still an easy win. You don't just you create a piece of content, put it on a LinkedIn group or create a Reddit post about it, and magically this is going to appear in page one or position one. These types of pages typically carry thousands of backlinks behind them. They're pushing so much traffic to these pages and promoting them. The caveat of that, obviously, is that the moment that it closes, that page that you're pushing closes, then you suddenly lose all your traffic. So I think when people are building these Parasite SEOs, is that short-term benefit a bigger gain than the amount of cost you're putting into investing and pushing this website? I think if a company is relying too much on Parasite, until SEOs figure out what the next Parasite SEO is going to be, there's going to be a bit of a gap. So it was quite an interesting take to see that financial results are being so affected by Parasite SEO. And I guess it's also a reflection of the state of the SERPs in a way. It's Google wants to cut down on spam websites, on exploitative practices as much as they can. But the reality is that it's still affecting businesses to this very day.
And it's really interesting that you mentioned the churn and burn model because, I mean, there have been those parasite sites where people just load content and see what happens, and if it doesn't work, it dies. But then you also have those huge partnerships, and we've seen massive partnerships. So I'm not going to mention any names because we're not trying to name and shame anyone, right? But there have been some massive newspapers within the United Kingdom, within Canada, within India, within a lot of jurisdictions, which suddenly start putting on coupon and gambling content onto their website. And it becomes a large part of their ecosystem and their business model. In fact, once they got hit by the manual updates, a lot of them are panicking because they lost a significant amount of revenue. And that leads me on to my next question, which is, for Ivana, if someone's winning or if someone's losing, someone else is winning, right? So since the May updates, who is winning and who is losing in your eyes right now? And what kind of strategies do you see? As Warren said, there still is the capability for people to have parasites within their, let's say, their bag of tools to utilize within their search engine practices. So who are the winners? Who are the losers? And which parasite practices do you think still have value and are still relevant in today's world?
First of all, I would stop on that name and shame. I don't think there is anything to be ashamed of if you did Parasite. Someone very clever, we're going to have him as a guest here, came up with the idea of Parasite. I wish I had that creativity, and because right now I would know what's the next step and how to make money. Okay, so there's no name and shame, so it's like name and glorify. And okay, you abused it, sort of, probably you made money out of it, but in SEO, I don't shame people because even the worst practices we could do somewhere sometimes made money. If it's PBN, if it's abuse, even if it's brand jacking, I don't love it, but it's a practice that someone is brave enough to do. Okay, so I don't really shame in SEO because SEO is about breaking rules when you think of it. Who is winning, who is losing? Definitely we see the English-speaking markets being hit the first. You could see disappearance of lots of parasite results in Canada. In USA, obviously in US, all the coupons were removed from the subdomains, then put back. But let's be honest, that the huge sites, such as, we are not going to name CNN here, they got warning 2 weeks before saying, we're going to give you a penalty, so you better clean up. So they cleaned up. Then all of this sort of like went away, and it's back. When you look at coupon, CNN is there again. I was actually preparing presentation thinking like I'm going to tell people how they removed it, and by the time I checked it, it was back. So again, as you said, it is a lot of money behind it. They are just not going to stop right there. But where is it still blooming is the non-English speaking markets. So I would not try Parasite in Canada. I would not try it in UK. I would not try it in Ireland. But there are lots of markets where you still see South Africa, Italy, it actually went up. France, German-speaking countries are still blooming on it. So you find your niche. In our case, it will be casino or betting, obviously, or maybe something else might be helpful to someone else who is thinking of this, and go to markets that Google is not targeting that heavily. Does anyone care about Slovak Serbs? No. In Slovak Serbs, you see I'm Slovak, by the way, the worst things, and they are still ranking. Polish Serbs, you can still find it in many markets. I wouldn't dismiss this practice. Okay, I'm not a person that is actively doing Parasite too much of it, but I still see the value in it. And I think problem with us is somebody does it and we copy paste the strategy as is. But if you think a little bit differently of it, then Google didn't find you yet. You know what I mean? Like if you just edit whole subdomain, that's very easy to find. If you did subfolder that is really sore, like a sore eye, and it's like I don't know, a website about cosmetics, and suddenly you talk about gambling, you're gonna find it, people gonna find it. So Google gonna find it. But if you do technology and then talk about a lot about the technology behind online casinos, for example, or betting, and then put some links, then you didn't get hit. It's just all about how it was implemented, the speed of implementing, and the way of taking care of the website. If you did it just to make money, then yes, Google will punish you. If you did it to utilize already existing website, let's say you had website talking about football and you add betting to it, well, there's nothing wrong to it. You're just enhancing what you had. So if you do it correctly, you're still winning. But if you do it in a very, very stupid way, as a lot of us do, because we just gonna try it and don't really think about it, then you're losing.
Yeah, and just to go back to the name and shame point, what I'm trying to say is, by the way, I cheer these guys also. Okay, so when I see a Parasite website ranking above a website which puts significant amount of time, effort, and it just pops up, ranks for 5 months, and then disappears, and then another one pops up, I'm over there cheering, right? What we need to be careful of is spotlighting the people who long-term investments, because let's remember, everyone, right now Google isn't releasing algorithmic penalties; they're doing it manually. And the people who are getting hit right now are the people who are very obvious and stick out like a sore thumb.
Sore thumb, not sore eye. Sorry about it. I said sore eye, didn't I? Sore thumb.
Sore eye? Okay, that's well,
totally
there you
sore
go.
eye.
You've coined a new term on the SEO Club. So if you're doing Parasite SEO and you stick out like a sore eye, you're going to get hit by a Google update. There we go.
First, you heard it in this podcast. Okay, so let's keep that in mind.
Yeah, and Warren, maybe you can talk a little bit more about. So we've spoken about, let's say, the SEO side, but I mean, Parasite is also about relationships. It's also about deals. It's also about how do you plan your revenues? How do you split those revenues? I mean, you can't just use a typical, hello, sir, do you want to make money by having a gambling niche subfolder on your website, and then we'll split the commissions, right? So maybe you can expose the audience a little bit more to this world of Parasite SEO, how it works from the financial perspective, what kind of websites you're going to target, what kind of discussions you would have, how you would structure those deals.
I mean, I'm not too sure how those deals, to be honest, would work, but if we think about what the Parasite is doing, essentially, it's taking the domain authority component out of it, but the rest of the SEO work needs to happen, right? So it's, in a way, it's a shortcut. And what we've seen, like with some of the bigger websites that were kind of selling space on their page in order to be used as Parasite, for them, they're just selling kind of advertising space, so to speak, promoted posts, guest blogging on some of the Indian websites, so to speak. I think what kind of in reference also to the previous question, highlighting who the winners and losers are, keeping in mind that Google is going manually site by site and having penalties site by site, they don't have a clear way to pick Parasite SEO up now. So what we're seeing is also newer websites that maybe previously were not picked up, such as recently I saw NVIDIA forums. People are posting betting related stuff on NVIDIA forums. I don't think anyone has a deal or some financial agreement with NVIDIA to push iGaming in some way. Yet people are building links, SEOs are building links to these sites, and they're managing to rank. And quite interestingly as well, I've seen also Google communities be used very aggressively in Parasite SEO. And recently, I think we've all seen that Google is going to deprecate the Google URL shortener. I wonder if this has any association to Parasite in some shape or form, because it's quite odd that it comes in this time when I've seen so many websites exploiting shortened URLs and using those types of services to push Parasite SEO practices. And inevitably, this is having an effect on the industry. And Google for sure doesn't want to have their own sources being used for Parasite SEO, diverting that which it's trying to stop.
And it's interesting hearing you speak because you've mentioned two of the structures already, right? So one of them is, I mean, and these are two where effectively the website owner has absolutely no idea that there's revenues being generated from
Absolutely.
iGaming affiliation. And this is when the typical hello, sir, I have a guest post, right? Our
Yes.
favorite two words to receive as website owners. I have amazing content for your domain. I'd even pay you to publish it. Then what do? You sneak in a post. You put links to affiliates, to links which you can then manipulate after and redirect to other links, which are affiliate deals. You get the post live. If it works out, you try and get another 10, interlink,
Yes.
and figure out if you can build, let's say, an undercover parasite.
Which, to be honest, is a practice that has been happening for a long time. It just was not coined as Parasite SEO, and maybe whoever was building these types of guest posts wasn't putting that much budget into building links and sending traffic to these sites.
And it did get quite difficult also. So as soon as people started seeing all of the, I mean, I won't mention the names just so that if they haven't been penalized, we don't spotlight them. But there have been some really amazing websites which have, I believe, have been utilizing this method for quite a long period of time, which are still flowing under the radar, which haven't been impacted. And my question would also be, are they not impacted because it fits into their standard business model and it's not a very clear abuse of a subfolder and a subdomain? And then we can talk about those other two, which are what happens when you, like, how are you going to convince a website owner to release content related to gambling on a subfolder or in a subdomain? And those are more of the wine and dine scenarios. So that's when you're going to go and need to build a relationship. We're not talking about small websites over here. We're talking about the large authorities. And they're not really going to just accept anyone releasing content unless they have some kind of deal structure with them. And what we've seen is it's either a fixed fee per month, so they don't care if you're successful or not. You're going to pay them a fixed amount every single month, and they can choose to increase or decrease that over time, depending on the agreements that you set into place. Or you split the revenues from the affiliate side, and you still have a fixed fee, or simply affiliation. In some cases, we've even seen, and these are the ones which I think Ivana can speak more about, because I really feel as though you mentioned a few times, done the right way. I think that from what I've seen, the websites which are doing Parasite SEO the best and the ones which are flying under the radar and could potentially continue flying under the radar and not sticking out like a sore eye, the ones which are acquiring the websites and purchasing them and then integrating the content in a very natural way and building out those sites to become gambling related over time. What do you think?
I think there is a way to do it. I think the ones that are most successful bought the websites and made it their own and took an ownership. And you could see which was their first website. And it isn't that beautifully done because it's just like adding all of this content and suddenly you have got so many new pages and then it's dying because it doesn't fit, because it's not a website that would naturally talk about it and it targets America where all the cleanup happened first. And then you see a technology website that long term is talking about technology, about everything technology related, including sports betting and casino, which technology is behind it and what are the challenges. And then they edit gambling to it as well. Lots of crypto sites would sell, and then you put crypto casinos to it, and it's just goes hand in hand. There's not a problem. And they did it regularly. So they started to slowly add new content. It wasn't like the website had 1,000 pages and tomorrow it has 5,000 pages and the day after it has 200,000 pages and it's just full of affiliate deals. They just made a regular, very slow, sort of logical change to it, and it ranks. But they still take care of the rest of the website and keep writing about the technology, not just the casino. So I think if you are clever about your approach and you don't become too greedy, then you can make it long term. If you become greedy, then you buy a website, you just flush it with affiliate deals, you make your money back. Of course, you're going to rank because it is the nature of a huge website. It's going to rank and then it's going to die. And if that's your model, then you know you not to invest money again in a new website that you're going to use and just kill, and then you're going to do it over and over and over. But that's not just somehow specific to Parasite. When you think a lot of websites are built on PBNs and you know they're going to last 6 months and make you money and then they're going to die. So lots of businesses have this model of building, killing, and just milking in that moment. It doesn't matter if it's Parasite or any other bad SEO practice, and some of them just look into long term. So if you do it properly, not just Parasite, any SEO approach, then you're going to make money long term. If you need money tomorrow, you're just going to abuse it, spam it, milk it, close it, and look what's next.
And there are teams and companies probably who are set up to operate in that churn and burn process.
Absolutely.
They probably, it's their practice. It's how they're used to working with it, and probably those are the successful ones. But when you're working maybe in a team or you don't have the infrastructure to manage that, but suddenly you see Parasite SEO as being a big money grab, you try to do it and you inevitably fail because there are others who are doing it much better than you, then that is kind of what is also affecting the impact of which Parasite SEOs are working and which are not.
But as we're talking about the financials here, I just want to point out that Parasite might be quick win, might be cheaper than building your own website, but it's not cheap. Okay. So don't think
It's
that you're
absolutely
going
not
to do
cheap.
it extremely cheaply and tomorrow you're going to make, 20,000 a day because you hang Parasite link somewhere. It is not cheap. And as well, it is not easy. And as well, as you pointed before, if the website decides to close your post or your partnership or whatever, you're left with nothing. It can happen overnight that you are deranked or the webmaster finds this and removes it and you invested money into nothing. And even if it's successful and you want to be done, there is no one that will actually buy a link or Parasite post. You don't have anything to sell. Therefore, I wouldn't recommend doing only Parasite. Have it as an extra, but if you are thinking of long term and retiring on selling a website, then you cannot have a Parasite SEO. You need to have a proper website for sale. And if that's your exit strategy because you want to retire as a 35-year-old person, which is not my case anymore, I missed that mark. But then you need to think that way. You cannot think just Parasite.
Yeah, and I think now we've covered quite a lot of topics on Parasite, and we do know that if you have done it correctly, you can effectively print money. And just as both Warren and Ivana have said, it's not only, for every success story you see, there are 100 which failed. Okay? And for every person that tried and thought that they were getting success, they were actually feeding into the patterns of a news website, which posts something for 48 hours, then it disappears. And then they don't go into the next steps of generating the expertise to generate the topical authority, build out that subfolder, interlink everything, really integrate into the process of the website. And that's time, and time is money, and then also you have the restrictions of the access to the website and the technical restrictions. So you're never guaranteed that it's going to work, no matter how good you are at this practice, because you are relying on a third party ultimately. But it is part of the marketing mix, as we've discussed. So regardless of Google's updates, there are still no algorithmic penalties. So everything is currently happening manually. From what we've seen also in our research is that currently it doesn't look like the main domain is impacted by Parasite SEO subfolders and subdirectories getting impacted by manual penalties. But when algorithmic penalties eventually do come out, if they do come out, that's the area where people should be worried about. And is it enough? Was the action that Google took by giving manual penalties enough to scare the domain owners for new partnerships based on what might happen algorithmically in the future? I don't know. It's anyone's guess to see how this will go. It's more of a campaign of fear rather than algorithmic excellence right now. But before we close this up, maybe we can just get a little bit of advice from Ivana and Warren about people who are thinking about doing Parasite SEO today. So there's all of this that has been going on, all of these risks which are on the horizon. Also, the fact that it still works. What would your advice be? And I and I think the audience would love to hear this from both Ivana and Warren. What would your advice be for people thinking about starting up a Parasite SEO website today?
I think look into markets that were not that affected. I already mentioned them, but if you look into deeper, then you see the English speaking ones. I would not touch, but the other ones I would. Why not? But create a good strategy. Don't go just with one post and think that's it. You still need to make links to it. Maybe create another post on that website and internally link to it. So create a good strategy as you would be doing an SEO strategy. Don't just think like, I'll do this and see. Make sure you still have money to promote somehow this Parasite page, and don't go to English speaking countries. I would go to Italy. I would go to the French speaking lands. I would go to things that Google is not really touching that much. Or if you are unregulated and you want to go into markets that are regulated and you cannot rank with your website for very heavy competitive keywords such as casino, online casino, then build strategy for that. But make sure that you have got enough money, because if you, let's say, going to do this in Switzerland, it is not going to be cheap. However, it might help you rank.
Absolutely. And as you mentioned before, Ivana, definitely don't only bank on Parasite SEO being your only strategy. Like, good luck explaining that to whoever you are reporting to, right? If you're spending most of your SEO budget on Parasite SEO. And I get the allure of it, right? SEO is typically a long-term game. We start to see results after such a long time. And this gives you like a huge shortcut where maybe you're working on a website that's not properly optimized. It might even take 6 months to get technical fixes on board. So you're thinking, okay, I need to get results as soon as possible. I want to show that we're good enough. And then you're underestimating how much effort Parasite SEO takes. So don't think it's like, my suggestion would be, don't think it's like a walk in the park where you're just going to create content and build a few links and magically it's going to work. This is essentially pushing someone else's website as if it were your own. It requires almost exactly the same amount of effort. So it needs to be a balancing act.
And if you look at any posts that are actually ranking and you put them, let's say, in Ahrefs, you will see that it took them around 2-3 months to start to rank. And there is extreme amount of links to it. It's not 1 or 2 links. There are links, like a
It's
lot.
huge.
What I would say is the difference between building new site, where you're starting slowly with the links, as this website used for Parasite already has an authority and lots of links, you just go more brave and you just bombard it with lots of links, and then it works. But as you said before, it could just die because Google picks up even other penalty, not just the Parasite, would be just that you bought too many links and they're spammy. So you could be braver, but you can still be a little bit cautious about what can happen.
And something that Sean mentioned as well, like kind of this being a scare tactic, right? So, for example, NVIDIA forum posts they have a very short shelf life, and NVIDIA is just deleting those types of Parasite posts. So you see them for a few hours. If you're lucky enough, then you go click on that link again, and it shows absolutely no content.
Yeah, and that's the reality of Parasite SEO in 2024 and beyond. It's not something which you can think financially is going to gain you results and keep them stable for the next 2 or 3 years. So when you are running your financial planning, do evaluate that there is a risk to this. Do evaluate that you need to have backups and you need to have alternate sources of income. So thank you very much, Ivana and Warren, for taking this internal SEO Club podcast. It was an extremely fun one. And please, everyone, do subscribe to the SEO Club. And if you do have any topics which you would like to cover, please let us know in the comments. And we would love to have affiliates on the show that are actually participating in Parasite SEO. So please reach out to us. We're available on LinkedIn. You can comment on our videos. We will take every single one of those extremely seriously. And we are looking for people who are participating in Parasite to join the pod on the next one. So thank you, and we'll see you later.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.